Hello there, entrepreneur. Hello there, freelancer, what have you. I just wanted to let you know, first of all, that you are lucky. You are one of the lucky ones. Why? Because you are an entrepreneur or a freelancer. And this means that you are in charge of your own time and you are your own boss. By the same token, I also wanted to let you know that unfortunately you're kind of cursed. And why are you kind of cursed? Well, because you're in charge of your own time and you are your own boss. Maybe you've noticed, and if you haven't, you most certainly will at some point, that it's all too easy when you are working for yourself and by yourself to start doing other things, to start watching videos, to start playing video games, to go to other websites, to be scrolling through your phone, to be munching on stuff all day, to want to go meet up with friends, to want to drive around, to want to walk around somewhere, to just watch TV, etc., 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 etc. At least, I mean, this was the case for me. I'm just talking from personal experience here. And this actually was quite a bit of a problem when I was first starting out working on my own. And it was a problem until I started taking time management seriously. And time management is something that ever since then I have been taking very seriously. And I've been kind of tweaking and changing and customizing for myself. And so here I want to share with you, well, the system that I've been using and how I've been using the different techniques and options and tricks that there are to time management so that hopefully you can use them as well. Because it's been thanks to these techniques and these systems and everything that I've created that I've been able to earn a living from freelance translation. In fact, I've been able to expand and I run my own agency now, Lugano Translations at luganotranslations.com. Look it up. I also set up another company called Lugano Wedding. It's a destination wedding company. I'm only a 20% shareholder now, but I founded the company. I also do consulting on a case-by-case basis for people who want to do stuff internationally where I can help out. I've also written a book, actually several books that are available on Amazon. I have courses online. This is one of many courses that you will find on platforms. And in addition to this, I like to spend time with my family. I have a wife and a daughter I spend time with, and I like to read in my spare time. I read around 190 books last year. And so this is all just to say that I try to get as much done as I can during the day. There are quite a few things that I want to get done, as you can tell. And so I really have had to take time management seriously. And I really do believe that if you really take time management seriously, you can maximize what you're able to achieve and you can keep achieving more and more and more. And in fact, more than you probably ever thought was possible. So please feel free to follow along. Don't forget, if at any point you have any questions or anything you'd like to talk to me about or suggestions or anything, you can always leave a comment and I will reply to them. And otherwise, I look forward to seeing you in the course. So without any further ado, let's get started on managing time. Now, the first thing that should be mentioned is that you are a freelancer and or entrepreneur, and so you are working on your own. So first of all, congratulations. You might be used to this, you might not. However, it still deserves some congratulations because you are in charge of your own life and you are your own boss. So along those lines, or actually very much not along those lines, let me start off with some dangerous quotes. Now, these are some quotes that you might hear yourself say or someone else say, or that either way you might think one way or the other. The first quote is, well, I could just watch TV right now. I mean, no one would notice. Another quote is, look, I got into business for myself so I wouldn't stress out. So why don't I just relax now? Another one is, look, just this once, I'll go get beers with friends. After all, it's my choice to work when I want, right? Now, these are all dangerous quotes because this type of mentality has ruined many, many plans. Unfortunately, this is what happens very often when you're working on your own. And I just wanted to address this at the beginning because this is one of the many traps that people can fall into when they are working on their own and when they're becoming a freelancer or an entrepreneur. Maybe you're used to working for a company. If you're used to working for a company thus far, well, guess what? Now you have no more boss breathing down your neck and you can kind of do your own thing. Except you can't really because you need to get your work done. So now you're the boss breathing down your own neck and you need to come up with a system to make yourself work. So these are some of the preliminaries and I just wanted to cover them right off the bat. Maybe you're used to them already, maybe you're not. But I should let you know right from the start that since you won't have a boss breathing down your neck since you're working on your own, well, guess what? I'm that boss. I'm going to be the one breathing down your neck and making sure you get work done. This course will create a system, and hopefully you can use this system so that you won't have to have me breathing down your neck, and the system itself will work for you so that you can get work done, you can get your job done, so you won't get distracted and you won't be following tangents, and you can actually get your work done. So please feel free to go through the system and to apply it to yourself and to whatever your situation may be. And that way you can keep your inner boss happy. And so your inner boss doesn't feel like he or she needs to be breathing down your neck all the time. And that way I don't have to either. In all seriousness, however, my points will be actionable, and that's what I'm going for in this course. I really want to create something that you can start working on right away. And along those lines, I expect you to use these points as you follow along in the course. I don't want you to take the whole course very passively and kind of say, okay, that sounded good, that sounded fine, but I want you to actually actively take notes and actually start applying it as you're following the course along. And you'll notice with the structure of the course that I start with the practical stuff first, and later we get into some theory as to why you should do this and how you can tweak it and change it and why things work the way they do. But I want to start with the practical first. That way you can get started. So let's start with making your plans. I call this the how section, and you'll see why later on, because later on we have a why section as well, which does get a bit more theoretical. But this is the how section. This is more practical. So let's get into it right now. First things first, you should plan your day the day before. Now this is actionable because today is the day before tomorrow. There is a day coming after today. You should be planning this day, tomorrow, today. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but anyway, you should make a schedule before you go to sleep. So anytime before you go to sleep tonight, you should make a schedule for tomorrow. In this schedule, make sure you leave some time for the unexpected. I wouldn't leave too much time, and try to leave this time right before lunch or right before the end of the day so you don't procrastinate too much. Things will come up and you will have to deal with them. On the other hand, if you decide to leave some extra time at 2 p.m., you could keep doing this extra stuff from 2 until 5 p.m. And you don't necessarily want to do this. We'll get into all the details later on. Do leave some time from the unexpected, but I prefer to do it, like I said, right before lunch and right before the end of the day so that I'm sort of rushing myself to get this stuff done and so I can have my lunch break or so I can get finished with the day. When you are making your plans, you want to plan the hardest task first. The task you really don't feel like dealing with, this is the task that you should be doing first thing. Pretty much first thing when you wake up, because you definitely don't want this task weighing down on you for the rest of the day and thinking, oh, then I need to get to this, oh, then I need to get to this, oh, then I need to get to this. Also, if you complete the hardest task first, you'll already have felt like you have a win for the day, and this will motivate you that much more to keep going on for the rest of the day. Think to yourself, if I finish X, it'll be a good day. Okay, now you want to identify that X for the day, and you want to figure out what will make tomorrow a good day. What can I complete? What can I finish? What can I do to make tomorrow a good day? That is that X factor. You want to identify that X so that you can complete it and make it a good day. Now, when you're identifying these X's and these things that'll make it a good day, don't identify any more than 6. Ideally, only 3 or 4. We'll get into this a bit more later in the theory, but just identify, I would say, 3 or 4 things that'll make tomorrow a good day. Maybe one bigger thing and then a couple smaller things. Look, extra stuff will always come up. You'll get extra phone calls and emails. We'll cover that later. But for now, just come up with 3 or 4 things that will make tomorrow a good day if you have them completed. So now that you've seen everything you should do, I want you to do this. I want you to do it right now. That's what I mean by actionable. I want you to actually get this done right now because this is something that you can do right away that will help you. And if you can write down what you need to do for tomorrow, it'll be very helpful right off the bat. So please do it right now. I'll wait. It shouldn't take more than 10 minutes. So you can feel free to pause this and just work on it. Whatever you get done in 10 minutes, that's perfect. And we can refine it and we can work on it a bit more as we get through the course. But for now, just a couple of minutes, frankly, should be enough to write down what you need to do. You pretty much already have it in mind, I think. So just write down whatever you have in mind. If you feel that what you're writing down lacks a bit of structure, don't worry. That's what we're going to get into later. For now, I just want you to write it down. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but I really want to make this clear. I will hold you accountable. I will find you and make sure you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, I won't. But I'm just trying to hold you accountable and actually make you get it done. There's only so much I can do through this course. So I'm really trying to emphasize this fact that I want you to take the action as you're taking the course. So now, this is something that you can do on the weekend, but either way, it's something where you plan down your week. And this is somewhat similar to what you did before in that you think to yourself, if I complete Y, it will be a good week. And you want to identify this Y. So along the same lines of what would make a good day, try to think broader and what would make a good week. And that is the Y that you want to identify. Once again, you will have a few goals. Now, these few goals for the week will be stuff that you can ideally cut down and divide into certain days so you can get certain aspects of the goals or certain goals themselves done on each day. You should jot them down somewhere handy as well because you won't necessarily remember them throughout the day and you don't want to have to search for them. I frankly just use a notepad on my desktop and so I can constantly see them anytime I want, and I usually have that notepad open in the background, and so I see what my weekly goals are. I also see what my daily goals are and the broader ones as well, the monthly goals and whatnot, and we'll cover that a bit more in detail later on. But for now, when you're planning your week, just follow these points. And as you can probably imagine, at the end of the month, you're going to be doing something somewhat similar. You're going to be planning your month, and you're going to be asking yourself, if I complete Z, it will be a good month. And as you can imagine, you should identify Z. You should identify the points that will make it a good month. Now, if it seems repetitive, this is somewhat on purpose. You do want to create this structure, and this structure goes from the broad month. Actually, it starts from the broad year, but we'll cover that later because that entails a bit more. But it starts from the broad month, and then it goes to the week, and then to the day. And all of these goals, the Z, the Y, and the X, should all tie together. And so along these lines, you should be asking yourself, if I complete Z, it'll be a good month. This Z can be divided into weekly goals and then into daily goals. Now you can separate these by different aspects of your life. Since these are monthly goals, you'll have certain aspects of your job, your certain aspects of health, family time, hobbies, etc., etc. And so definitely keep these in mind for your monthly goals. Not everything will have to do with work. You will want to work on your hobbies. You'll want to work on your health and definitely keep that up. You might want to spend time with your family. You might also have a side job that you want to spend some time on. So keep all of these aspects in your mind when you're planning out your month. Once again, jot them down somewhere handy because you won't remember them necessarily. And once again, I prefer something very simple and easy that I will constantly see. When I'm jotting these down, I want to make sure that they are somewhere where I can access them very easily and I don't have to worry too much about finding them. Now, as I mentioned, the same goes for the end of the year, but it will involve more work. Now, you can check later on in the tips videos where I get into this a bit more. Now, right off the bat, this might seem to you that these are a lot of steps. I mean, we're trying to manage time here, and we're taking all this time to manage it, which might seem to be a contradiction somewhat. But if it's done correctly, these things should be inspiring you. When you're setting your goals for the month, for the week, and for the day, they should be inspiring you and they should be pushing you. You should be looking forward to revisiting your life goals and seeing how much progress you've done and what needs to be improved in order to achieve these goals. So when you're jotting down these goals and when you're following them and when you're getting them done, you should be asking yourself if they're inspiring you or not, because this will help you for the next section. Are your plans the right ones? Now we're going into the why section. This might be a bit more theoretical, but it's also very important. I chose not to do this at first because I wanted to make this actionable. So hopefully you've been applying at least the daily goals. And if you're going over this course during the weekend, then you've been applying the weekly goals and maybe monthly goals. Anyway, now we're getting into the why, and we're going to cover your goals a bit more broadly. So since we've been planning everything else, let's go even more long-term and let's plan the rest of your life. Your life goals are something that should always be kept into account. These will change over time, over your entire life, obviously, but these are things that you want to keep in the back of your mind, and you want to make sure that all the steps you're following and all your smaller goals, your short-term goals, actually align in order to achieve your life goals. So now's as good a time as any, so why don't we set some life goals, or why don't you set down the goals that you have? Remember, if you have stuff like a vision board, or if you've jotted down your bucket list or anything along those lines, these tie in. So you might want to get access to these, and you might want to take a look at these in order to set up your life goals. This is a big thing, and this is what you want to achieve in life. Along these lines, you want to look at your work, at your career. You want to see what your goals are there in terms of your life. You also want to look at health. This is very important, especially as you're aging, as I've been noticing. You also want to look at hobbies. You definitely want to keep some hobbies, and you're probably interested in hobbies. And so keep these into account as well. If you can advance in your hobbies and you can improve in them, then it'll make them all that more enjoyable. Also, family. This is very important for most people. And these are also just examples. You might have other things as well that you want to be working on. Maybe you're working on a novel in your spare time, or you're trying to get a patent, or you're working on sports and you're really enjoying that, or travel, or whatever it might be. When you have your life goals, this is what you want to be setting down, and this is stuff that you want to have accomplished. Now, a lot of people want to divide these into 5-year goals, 10-year goals, and what have you, and that's doable, and it's definitely something you can work on. But for now, you probably have some goals in your life, things that you want to have achieved, things that you want to have done, that you want to, places that you see yourself at some point in time. For now, just do that. If you have, once again, a vision board, then it's probably stuff that's on there. Or if you have a bucket list or a list of things you want to have completed in life, then that's what we're talking about right now. So great. Now you've written down your life goals, and the purpose of this is that you should be cutting down. You should be working on one thing first. You want to cut out the extras, and you want to make sure that if you have a bunch of goals in life or a bunch of goals for hobbies and stuff like that, you're not working on everything at the same time. So along these lines, try to, once again, go through your work career and find one goal for your work or your career. Find one goal for your health. Find one goal for hobbies and one goal for family. Now, I'm going to be nice to you, and I'm going to add one extra endeavor. So one other goal that can overlap with something. So if you have your work, but you're also working on a side business, then you can add that in. Or if you have maybe 2 hobbies, then you can add that in. You can have one thing that overlaps just because I'm feeling in a generous mood. But you do want to cut down on too many extraneous things. Even if you have a bunch of goals you want to achieve, keep them in the back of your mind, obviously, if the opportunity presents itself. But you're going to get a lot more done if you first concentrate on one goal and then later concentrate on the other ones. And you'll have time to reevaluate, reassess at what point you want to change from one goal to the next, et cetera, et cetera. But for now, you should make sure you cut everything down, all the extraneous stuff, and work on one goal at a time. So I know what you're thinking. Right now you're thinking, wait a minute, suddenly I've got too much stuff going on. I can't just cut it down to one thing. I mean, there are all these goals, there are all these things I want to accomplish. And so I'm telling you right now that when you see these other opportunities that come up or other things you could be working on, to just say no, to cut them all out and to do away with as much as you can. The goal here is that you want to cut out as much as you can. If you're working on 10 things, if you're working on 10 things, it's just you won't be able to get as much done than if you're working on just 1 or 2, waiting until you get them done and then work on something else. You really want to be concentrating with your entire brain on what you're working on. And if you have 10 things that you're juggling, even if you're not working on them at this precise moment, they're still in the back of your mind bothering you, and you're thinking about working on them later on. Really, you want to move these aside, you have them written down somewhere, but otherwise just concentrate on what you're working on. Now, the reason I left this for later is because, as I mentioned before, I want to make sure that your daily, weekly, and monthly plans are inspiring you. So now look back to them. Look back to what you structured for your day or week or even your month, and does it fall in line with these goals that you set out? And also, do these goals and what you've been doing for the day and for the week and for the month, do they inspire you? Do you find them inspiring? How do they compare to your final goals? Does your work that you're doing right now really fit into your final goals? If not, you might want to make some changes. So now that you've set your long-term life goals and hopefully you're able to divide it and use your daily and weekly and monthly goals so that they all align to your life goals, let's refine this a bit and go into some theory. Later on, we'll get into more of the nitty-gritty, but here we're going to a broad sense and we're going to refine it a bit and make sure that it's working smoothly. So first of all, how many goals should you have per day? Now, I said 3 or 4 tops. Warren Buffett said 5, and once he was asked that question, he said he likes to have 5 things per day. If you follow the Ivy Lee method, which I will cover later on, the Ivy Lee method says 6. Quite frankly, the best method you can have is the one that you will stick to. And no matter what it is, as long as you stick to it day in and day out, then that is the best method to have. So along these lines, it's easier to start small and grow. You don't want to start with, say, 10 goals because you're feeling totally motivated, but then realizing that you're only getting through 4 goals by the time 4 p.m. comes, and you feel demotivated. And then tomorrow you need to work on the same goals that you still had today, and then that feels bad, and then you won't be able to complete those goals, etc. Anyway, you see what I mean. So it's better to start off a bit too small, and then you can grow from there. Now this brings me to the Kaizen method. So the Kaizen method is a method that's used for productions, operations, management, and for many different industries. But for our purposes, it can be applied in this manner. Instead of encouraging large, radical changes to achieve the desired goals, these methods recommended that organizations introduce small improvements, preferably ones that could be implemented on the same day. So there's a lot more actually to the Kaizen method, and it's actually extremely interesting if you do want to get into the theory a lot more. However, for our purposes, this basically means to start small. So start with maybe even just 1 goal per day. And then if that goes well, then the next day you can have 2 goals. And if that goes decently, the next day you can have 3. And just work on this and see how it goes. And you might surprise yourself. Maybe you can do 5 or 6, or maybe you feel more comfortable with 3 or 4. But just start small and then grow. Look, this might seem really intuitive to you and kind of elementary. On the other hand, many people, when they're motivated, they want to get as much done as possible, and so they'll tell themselves, oh no, I'll do 6 or 7 or 8 different goals. I'll have a whole lot of goals for tomorrow because I can get a whole lot done. And then they just get burnt out, or they're not able to get the stuff done, and they get demotivated and stuff like that. So it does bear repeating. Remember, once you're done, you're done. So what does this mean? If you're able to finish all your goals by noon, I don't want you to try to actually sneak in some other goals and get more done. No, that's it. You can work on something else. You can work on your hobby, your family, or trying to achieve other life goals, and that's fine. But you shouldn't be trying to cram in more than you did before. Obviously, you can keep this in mind for the next day. You can try to schedule more goals for the next day and see how that goes. But for this day, if you finished all your goals, then you're done. Now, the reason for this is actually burnout. And the problem is because let's say you finish your 3 or 4 goals by noon, and then you feel, well, I still have half a day. I could get quite a bit more done. Let's see what other goals I can work on. The fact is, you haven't really prepared for them. And maybe you can get 1 more goal in, but you'll basically feel that the whole morning you were very productive. The whole afternoon you were not so productive, which makes you feel a bit burnt out and also sort of demotivates you. You think, well, I was productive, but then I spent a lot of time procrastinating and not getting much done, and that really demotivates you for the next day. I'd much rather that you get your stuff done, then work on other stuff, hobbies, family, whatever, and you'll be very ready the next morning to hit the ground running when you're trying to get your next goals done. You don't want to be productive for just half of the day and then spend half of the day using just as much energy and effort but not getting much done. So now that you have all that said, let's work on making your workday a lot more smooth. Hopefully this has dealt with your life goals and what you're looking to achieve. So now we're going to deal a bit more with the nitty-gritty of your day-to-day and how you can make it flow a lot more smoothly. First of all, things to embrace. Now, I'm not talking about people or stuff like that. I mean, you can embrace whoever you like, but things to embrace in terms of your work life and your work day. The first thing is labels and folders. Labels and folders are things that you can put on anything, especially for your documentation. You might have folders, you might have boxes, you might have papers and what have you that you need to keep around, you want to embrace labels and folders, and you want to be labeling everything that you can. Now, you might think, well, I just work on my computer a lot, so it doesn't matter. No, but this applies to the computer as well. You're going to have a lot of documents that you work on your computer. You're going to have a lot of files, and chances are they're jumbled up. You have a bunch on your desktop, and other ones are all over the place. You really want to embrace labeling, and you want to embrace different folders, and you want to sort them out in a way that makes sense to you, however you see things and however works best for you. So, for example, you could have one broad business thing and then divided by your different types of business. And then you could have another folder for family stuff, another folder for your hobbies, and then later it gets divided by the different hobbies. And something that makes sense to you and the way you're doing it. And you want to be able to label everything that you have. Ideally, you can have everything in labels and your desktop can be clear of clutter and you don't have anything on your desktop except for the stuff that you're currently working on right now. And keep in mind that miscellaneous, other, etc., bits and bobs, stuff like that, those are not labels. I don't want to see any of those on your labels. And like I said, I'm going to come check. No, I'm not. But you don't want any folders or anything like that that just says miscellaneous. Because unfortunately, after a while, you'll just start piling a bunch of stuff into miscellaneous and other, and it'll just make it a lot harder to find stuff. You're going to be wasting a lot of time trying to search for stuff. And that's why you're embracing all these labels and folders. It's because you want to make it very easy to retrieve any information you need. The next time you find yourself looking for a file and it takes you forever to find it, well, that's because you haven't embraced labels and folders. So please do embrace labels and folders. And I know on your computer you can search for stuff, and that definitely helps. But chances are you still spent quite a bit of time trying to search for something before you actually found it. And in that case, you should keep in mind that you should put it in a place that's a lot easier to find. Another thing you should embrace is lists. Now, lists are a to-do list, obviously, and you should be very happy to use lists. A lot of people don't like to do them. They have this reputation for being very nerdy and not letting people think outside the box and not be creative or something like that. Do away with all that. You really want lists. You need lists, and everyone, all the best people in the world use lists. There's a book, an excellent book called The Checklist Manifesto, which is all just about lists, and it talks about how people like the fact that airplanes, that you never see the same crash twice. Different airlines learn from different ways that the planes crash, and so the same mistake never happens twice, and all of this is done through checklists. And the same is for doctors, by the way. When they clean their hands or prepare for surgery or stuff like that, they use these checklists. Now, if these people can use checklists, so can you. Now, technically, there are two types of checklists. There's a to-do list and a check once done list. You can just use whichever you're more comfortable with. In theory, a to-do list would be something that you need to do later. So usually these are things, maybe on a certain day you have to do this, on the next day you have to do different things. There you would have a to-do list. A check when done is when you follow the same steps every single day and you just want to make sure that they've been done every single day. Think along the lines of every single day I have to make sure I water the plants, I clean the yard, I do this, I do that, blah, blah, blah. And those you can just check them once they're done. You don't have to write a new to-do list every time. Regardless, they more or less cover the same thing. So you can see which one makes you feel more comfortable. Most people use a to-do list for things that change from day to day, i.e. new goals. And so you can feel comfortable just using a to-do list. And once again, I'm emphasizing this. Be serious about these, and don't feel like you're being nerdy and not cool or not inspiring. They are absolutely needed, and so just learn to embrace them, learn to love them.